Let's unpack this term, long COVID. Explain, what is long COVID?
Very good question. So there's the acute infection that folks have when they have COVID-19 with symptoms lasting about 10 days. And then most people get better. Weeks go by, and then depending on whether or not you're vaccinated in terms of your risk of it, 10 to 30% of folks, some folks can go on to develop what we call long COVID, also known as long hauler syndrome or post-COVID syndrome. There are a lot of different names that we identify it as, but the basics are symptoms that develop after you have already recovered from COVID that happen a couple of weeks later. And as my grandmother would say, long COVID can impact you from your rooter to your tutor, from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet. There is no short COVID. That's really just the acute infection. But long COVID are the symptoms that can last months to upwards of a year plus after having recovered from COVID.
What are the mitigating factors that could possibly prevent long COVID? Does vaccination, does boosters, does any of that mitigate the chances that one may come down with long COVID?
That's an excellent question. So recent studies show that if you are not vaccinated, the risk of long COVID is anywhere between 10 to 30%, meaning that if 100 people who are unvaccinated get COVID, between 10 to 30 of those individuals are going to go on to get long COVID symptoms.
Unvaccinated.
Unvaccinated. Now, when it comes to vaccinated populations, that's when it gets a little bit tricky. There's some studies that show that there is a 40 to 50% reduction in risk for long COVID. There are other studies that show only a 15% reduction in the development of long COVID. The studies are ongoing so that we're gathering more information, but with whatever information we read, it shows that there's either a small decrease or a pretty substantial one. I think for anyone who's considering whether or not to get vaccinated, the conversation before was about protecting from severe infections, protecting from hospitalizations and death. Because this particular subvariant is associated with milder symptoms, we still have to remain vigilant about the risk of long COVID.